Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the leg motion technique. We'll see a few options to develop the leg motion technique. One will be with the flat foot landing, the other one will be keeping the ankle relaxed. We'll see what the differences are, when to use these two techniques, and why are they so different. Before getting into the lesson, I want to take a moment to introduce myself in case you never heard of me. My name is Payne. I've been developing instructional drum methods for many years now. My passion for drums brought me to teach to many hundreds of people throughout the last 10-15 years. I've also participated in a biomechanic experiment that was researching data for the leg motion, ankle motion, and posture while playing drums. On top of that, I've been a touring musician for many years, playing with some of the most influential death metal bands in the scene and playing on a lot of the most important festival stages around the world. In case you're interested in my instructional methods, you will find everything on my website, jamespaynedrums.com. Awesome. With that said, we can jump into this, starting from learning the difference between a flat foot leg motion technique and a constant leg motion technique. And these are two very different ways of landing, but it will be the same way of doing the upstroke motion, okay? So there will be some similarities, but the fact of the difference of the landing will shape these two approaches in two completely different ways, and we will need to use them in two completely different situations. So the first one that I will demonstrate will be a flat foot motion landing. So where we land basically literally with the foot completely touching the ground, all at the same time. So we will hit the ball of the foot and the heel at the same time, creating a landing that it's creating a flat foot landing. The second one instead will see us landing with the ball of the foot first and the heel later, which is substantially different for two main reasons. One is the power, how we generate the power. Second is going to be the speed. So when do we use the flat foot technique? We will use it when we will play a one single stroke and we want a lot of power. The flat foot landing, it's equal to the Moeller technique for our hands, where there's a whipping motion created and that generates the energy and the power. So we will do like there's a up motion and then there's a landing that creates a whipping motion because it lands with a flat foot. And there's a little bit of tension that we put to raise the foot before the landing and landing with a flat foot. And this technique will allow us to have very powerful strokes. If you're right-footed, you might feel this more with your left foot, where if you try to have a lot of power in the stroke, you might find yourself having to push a lot with your leg, so have an explosive power of the leg, but you will feel a lot of tension with still little result or not a lot of result, while having this whipping motion, the fact of landing with a flat foot will give you that extra power and that extra snap at the end of the stroke, which will be the one that will generate all the motion. I always compare this to throwing a rock. If we throw a rock with the explosive power, so from here to forward, we will use a lot of explosive power, a lot of energy for little result. But if we use a whipping motion, so a technique with zero or very little energy effort, we will have a very good result. And this is because of this whipping motion and a little snap at the end where we throw the rock. It's the same principle applied, well, to the Moeller, first of all, and we are just repeating this on the pedal. So with this one, we will have very powerful stroke. But what happens when we start speeding up this? It's that this little tension to create the whipping motion, as we increase the speed, it will become too much. It will get in the way of the deactivation of the muscle of the legs. So it will keep us constantly contracted and we will start feeling a lot of tension in the leg. So here is where we have to switch to the second approach to the leg motion, which is the constant leg motion, which will allow us to keep the ankle relaxed. And so without that extra tension that we are doing every time, that we would do every time with the flat foot landing, it will help us to keep the leg deactivated. And so we can start increase the speed more without feeling all that tension. So the key is to keep the ankle relaxed so that we don't have a constant contraction of the leg, which will force us to kind of like stress the hip flexor area way more than what we could and what we should. So the energy and the power in this case will be created from the constant motion of the pedal rather than from the actual motion itself. So if we try to use this approach for very slow strokes, we will find ourselves having very little power, and we will have to push a lot with our leg, using a lot of the explosive motion. So it's important already at this time to understand when are we using the flat foot landing, the flat foot approach, and when are we using the constant leg motion approach, and why. Okay, so the flat foot landing allows us to have a lot of power generated from the whipping motion between the leg and the ankle, but as we speed it up, it will create too much tension. So we will switch into a constant leg motion, which instead will keep our legs relaxed and will allow us to still have a good power, more speed, and not stress our legs too much, not do too much of a physical effort, right? This will also, this type of approach, the constant leg motion, we can push it all the way to around 140, 150 BPM, so it will cover a lot of what I call the gray area, which is like all those range of BPMs where it's too fast for full leg motion, but it's too slow for ankle motion only. And so this type of approach of like keeping the ankle relaxed will allow us to kind of like have the motion is generated from the leg still, so it comes from the hip flexor area, but it will allow us to keep the ankle also relaxed and partially involved to cover all these speeds, like from I would say from 120, 130 all the way to 150, 160. Okay, from 160 on, I usually switch to full ankle motion or mostly ankle motion. So the motion there changes. We're not talking about the leg motion anymore. We go and switch the control to an ankle motion, which is not something I will cover today, but it's important that we understand how far can we push the speed so that we don't get confused and be like, oh, I thought I could use this at 180, 200 BPMs. No, at that point you will need to switch to ankle motion. Awesome, so now that we know the difference between the two approaches, before jumping into how to develop these two techniques, these two different leg motions, we will have to talk about balance. Balance is a very important thing. There's one aspect of balance that we have to keep in mind always, or as much as possible, which is the lower back, especially when we're using leg motions, because we will have to activate a lot the hip flexor area, which is something that is also connected to the back. Okay, so somehow this area connects to the back. The more tension we will create here, the more it will be affecting the hip flexor area. So the more this area is deactivated, so it's relaxed, the less tension we will feel at the hip flexor level. Why is this important? Well, the main thing is that what we want to achieve by developing technique is always to be able to activate and deactivate the muscles. This is a very important thing that we have to keep in mind. When we talk about being relaxed, what we mean is that we want to deactivate the muscles once is being activated. So if there's a constant contraction, we will slowly, constantly, contracting more and more and more the muscle to the point where we're just so tired and we have to sacrifice the dynamic, do a lot of physical effort, and it's not very ergonomic and it's counterproductive. So instead, if we keep this area relaxed, the lower back as relaxed as possible, so deactivated as possible, this will allow us to activate and deactivate, activate and deactivate the hip flexors much more, which is something that the leg motion allows us to do. While for example, the heel up will keep a slight constant contraction here because we will need to free the ankles. So in that case, it's a different thing, but the good thing about the leg motion is that you can feel it. It activates and deactivates. Of course, it activates when we're lifting the leg and then deactivating. Why don't we, to raise the leg or to play the stroke, why it's not as efficient to press down from the foot, but it's easier to just have the motion starting from the hip flexor? Because if we do this, you can feel it, you can see it, you will sacrifice the dynamic, you will involve the calf muscle a lot, and you will still feel tension here. So this instead will be a more ergonomic and will keep all this area, the lower part, more relaxed. We'll get into this as we will go through the steps to develop the leg motion technique. Okay, so the first thing is to remember to keep this part, so our balance, as relaxed as possible. If you don't find yourself comfortable and that you can kind of like feel this lower part deactivating and keeping relaxed, you will need to maybe adjust your stool. Maybe you would need to raise your stool. If you're too low, that means that you have to overwork because you're already in a low position and you have to raise even more the legs, so you're gonna overwork certain areas. Or if you're too high, you might, with the stool, you might be leaning towards the front or still not, having to extend your legs a little bit too much because you have to reach the pedals, or you're too far or you're too close. Okay, so you want to make sure you sit on your stool where the legs are landing. You want to place your pedals there. Okay, you don't want to put the pedals too far away, too much in the front or too far away one from the other, but nice and in a natural position. Okay, keeping in mind that we will eventually have the snare in between our legs, but not more than that. It's not necessary. So once we have a good balance, also our head, not playing with the head going towards the front, but keeping the head and a good balance, we can start get into developing the techniques, the leg motion, the two leg motion techniques. Perfect. So in my methods, I always, first of all, work on the body motions without the gear, without the pedals themselves. I want to do one step backward with my stool, and I want to start developing the motions without the pedals, because the pedals will be an external force that we will have to deal with, and so if we haven't developed the motion yet, coordinated the motion in our body yet, having already to deal with an external force can be confusing. It can be just make the process longer because the body is not coordinated yet, and it already has to deal with an external force that is forcing it to do certain things through the spring tension. So the first motion we will develop will be the flat foot motion. So there will be an upstroke, and when we're practicing without the pedals, we will do way more physical work because we don't have the pedals that are working with us and helping us, but it doesn't matter because it's just one step of the process, and we will then apply everything on the pedal and make it more effortless. But it will be upstroke, we'll keep the ankle relaxed, we'll raise that leg the foot, we'll raise the foot, and then we will land, okay, with a flat foot. So the 3 steps is going to be upstroke, raise the toes, landing, upstroke, raise the toes, landing. And then the more we get used to this, the more we will make this a constant motion. Not a constant leg motion, but a unique, like not a 3-step motions, but a motion that happens all at one time, okay? And we will get used to this. And a lot of the times, this is a motion that comes almost natural to people, because we are used to, when we're walking, to lift the toes, the foot in this way, so that we don't fall on the ground, right? So sometimes, or a lot of the times, I see many of my students or people that I work with when we were developing this, that this is less of an issue to coordinate than instead the second one, which is the constant leg motion, okay? So the constant leg motion, the upstroke will be exactly the same. So the upstroke is the same for both approaches, the flat foot and the constant. So we'll raise the foot, raise the leg and raise the foot in this way, keeping the ankle relaxed. And then from here, we land on the toes and land on the heel, okay? So we'll divide this in 3 steps again before making it a unique motion. So up, toes, heel, up, toes, heel, okay? And then again, as we get more used to this, we will make it a 1 motion. And let's make sure we hear the phlegm sound between the toes and the heel when we land. So the sound will also tell us if we're landing on a flat foot or with a constant leg motion. Flat foot, we hear 1 tap. The constant leg motion, we will hear a phlegm, so 2 taps, very close. So 1 is, which is the constant leg motion, the second one that I did, and the first one is only 1. So flat foot, constant. Flat foot, constant. We can hear it already here on the ground that the flat foot technique gives us way more power, way more dynamic and volume for each stroke than the constant leg motion. But I already explained why. Like the flat foot, we will use it for very slow or 1 strokes, while the constant, we use it when we're playing a more consistent and continuous leg motion. Okay, so we will generate the power and we will get the dynamic in a completely different way compared to the flat foot landing. Awesome. So once we're here, a second step for the flat foot, you can already apply directly on the pedal. And a good approach is to, from a relaxed position, you can start by pressing a little bit or pressing the beater against the surface you're playing on. And then from here, from this position, you repeat the same motion. So you go basically 1, 2, 3, okay? But doing it in 1 full motion, it comes out like this. So if it's hard to apply it right away, you can repeat it on the floor and then try to replicate exactly the same motion on the pedal. And it's important that we try to stay with the pedal board the whole time, that we don't disconnect the foot from the pedal by, and then we hit the pedal with the shoe, but we stay connected to the pedal board the entire time. The pedal will follow us back up and then we'll, land back into it. That's why we do the pressing first, so that when we raise the leg or raise the foot, the pedal is coming back with us. We don't do this from here and then this, even though now I'm so used to that I still get some power, but this will allow us to give it way more power. So press and then lift very quickly and land with the flat foot. For the constant leg motion approach instead, we will do a step in between. We will remove the spring of the pedal, if you can. If you can't, you can either loosen the spring as much as possible, or you can skip this step. It's not necessary, but it's a very good step if you can do it, because it will force us and allow us to really work on not choking the pedal. If we do this, the game is over. We can't do anything else. But if we use the constant leg motion approach, the motion is always from here. Now I get to the point where from here I could switch to ankle, because it's starting to get at a speed that is starting to become too fast for the leg motion. But the exercise without the spring, the good thing is that I cannot choke the pedal. I have to do the correct motion. I have to have the correct approach in order for this to work without the spring. Then we can put the spring back on and simply replicate the same motion. And we can even put more pressure compared to before. Before, without the spring, we should have stayed a little bit more, a little bit light on the pedal, because if not, we will choke it and the pedal wouldn't come back. Now we can have a little bit more pressure because the spring is going to push the beater back anyway. So we can have even a little bit more dynamic, but we have to keep the same approach. The goal here is to keep the ankle as relaxed as possible, because if we have a tension, if we keep the ankle tense, I feel I'm doing twice the work. I feel this area, it's getting way more tense and it never has the opportunity to deactivate, to loosen up. So I'm doing 3 times the work, and what this does sometimes, or most of the times, is that one day we'll be able to play at a certain speed, but we will overwork the muscles. The day after, the muscles will be tired, and so they won't be able to perform in the same way they did the day before. So we won't be able to reach the same speed. It's like when you go to the gym and your muscles are sore because you lift weights, and you feel it the day after. Here we don't feel it maybe through, like, you don't feel the pain, but you feel that through the performance. You feel the legs are kind of like numb, like you get to a point and then you have no power, because the muscles are recovering from the day before. So it becomes a very inconsistent approach because we are overworking, and that's the goal of technique. Technique is there to take the physical effort away as much as possible. So the good technique allows us to deactivate the muscles as much as possible, so that we still have the energy, we still have dynamics and the power, but we are not relying only on the body, on a physical strength, and so we can play the same with consistency, with the same consistency every day. Okay, so that's the point of technique. And so every time there's a constant contraction of any sort, we are less technical, we are more physical, and so it's less efficient on the body, okay? And usually also on the instrument, on the dynamic and on the sound itself. We will sacrifice the sound and the dynamics and the control of the instrument, because there's a constant contraction. If the muscle is constantly contracted, it's way harder to move it fluently than if it's activated and deactivated. Okay, this is all part of what technique is in any motion that we will do, not only the leg motion. Now I'm just applying it on the leg motion. I'm just talking on the leg motion, but this is on ankle, on wrists, on arm, on everything we're doing. So as far as the constant leg motion, if we start slow, the slower we go, the more the motion will be leg driven, right? So it will be mostly from here, activating, deactivating. As we start to speed up, the ankle will start joining in the motion a little bit more, right? I still feel the motion is activated from here, but I see how the ankle is getting more and more involved and is kind of helping almost all of the motion happening. To, like, the pedal is controlling, is absorbing part of the work, okay? So it's like when I'm here, it's 100% leg motion. When I'm here, it's like 60% leg, 40% ankle, right? And so I'm also using the ankle to help all of this process happening, because the more space I have to occupy. Let's say if I'm occupying this space at this speed, if I try to occupy the same space but faster, it's going to be way harder for the muscle to deactivate, because I am overworking this area. So instead, making the ankle do part of the work will relieve this area, will take some work off here, and it's still, though it's not ankle motion yet, it's still leg motion, but the ankle starts to help. There's an important thing, which is the placement of the pedal, of the foot on the pedal board. The pedal also is designed in a way that has more space on one side and less space on the other. So we can take advantage of this. We can use the design of the pedal based on the speed that we're playing at. So for very slow, constant leg motion speeds, we can go all the way up, because doing the same here at the same speed, you see how the beater is getting sacrificed. The dynamic is way low, and I have to keep certain parts always in tension, constantly contracted. Instead, if I'm here, way more relaxed, way more dynamic, and so it's more natural, and it's clear. I feel it clearly that the right placement, the right position is here on the pedals for this speed. But then if I start to speed it up, I feel way more tension. I'm tensing up because there's too much space to cover for this speed. So if I go in the lower part of the pedal board, way more relaxed, because I'm covering less space, because the pedal is designed in a way that the lower I go on the pedal board, the less space I have to, the foot has to travel. So I'm not sacrificing the dynamics at all. I have perfect control of the instrument. I have very relaxed approach on my legs. But for the same speed, if I go up, way more physical effort here, relaxed. So the pedal, the foot placement is very important for this reason. We have to feel it in order for us to understand, okay, I'm playing, it's the same approach, it's the same technique, but it's a different speed, and so I have to occupy less space. Space and times are connected. It's impossible to cover the same amount of space when we're going faster. So taking advantage of the pedal board, that's a great thing because of this reason. It will help us to do everything way more relaxed. Another important thing to keep in mind is the height of the heel, okay? The higher, so if I am starting in a relaxed position, the heel will be completely at rest. Then if I start to move the leg from here, what would happen is that the ankle goes up and then goes back down, right? Because the heel goes up and then goes back down, because the ankle is completely relaxed, right? If we instead, from this position, do this, and we start with the heel high like this, I already feel a contraction here, a constant contraction. So I'm already working more than what I could. And if I want to relieve this area, I want to take pressure away, I have to activate this area. So I have to raise the leg a little bit from here. So this is already a signal to me that this is less efficient, is less technically correct than this, because there's more constant activation of the muscle, which is not efficient compared to this, which is completely relaxed. Okay, so if we start from this position, we already see that, and then if we keep the heel raised like this, I see how much more work, I feel how much more work my body is doing to do this. Less dynamic. If I want this approach, this dynamic, where the beaters are touching the top of my shoes at this BPM, with very little activation of the muscles, oh, it's impossible. I have to run on the pedals, because there's this constant contraction that it's not allowing the pedal to work freely and to take advantage of all the space that it has, and my body to be relaxed and be deactivated. So as I was saying before, if we have a constant contraction, it will go against a smooth motion, and so it might give us the feeling of being more in control of the instrument, because we don't have to synchronize to the instrument, to the pedal as much. Like here, there's kind of like a calibration, a natural calibration that you develop between how much the ankle is moving, how much the leg is moving, and how much the pedal is moving. So you develop enough control to kind of like just feel it and adapt to it. Well, this one, you're forcing the pedal. The pedal is just kind of like there, and it's actually, it feels almost that you're working against the pedal. The pedal is against you, and you're kind of like pushing it down with your strength, the strength of your legs. So it might give you more of that feeling, but in the long run, this will tire you. It's not efficient. In a technical sense, based off of the theory of activation and deactivation of the pedal, of the muscles. So the more we can deactivate the muscles, the better, and the more technically correct it is. Perfect. So now that we understand the difference between the two approaches of the leg motion, it's the same technique. It's because it's generated from the same area, but based on how we approach the landing, we'll have two different results. So the first one with the whipping motion is a flat foot landing, because it lands with the flat foot, with the entire bottom of the foot, while the other one is a constant leg motion, where there's a constant motion and the ankle is relaxed, and will allow us to speed up and without having constant contractions. It's important to remember the things to avoid, okay? It's better not to sit too low, because if not, we have to raise the legs too much, and we'll overwork certain muscles. It's important to remember when to use the two techniques. If we will have a stiff ankle in a constant leg motion, we will feel way more tension than what we should, and it won't be as comfortable, and we won't have the same control and the same dynamic on the pedal and the same relaxed feeling. Same for keeping the heel too high or raised the entire time, or too low or low the entire time. So if we keep the heel constantly raised or constantly low, we'll have a constant contraction that will go against the motion and will make us do way more work than what we should. So let's remember to keep the ankle relaxed in a constant leg motion. And the last thing is the foot placement on the pedal board. So if we're doing a certain speed, we should be more on top of the pedal board. The faster we go, the more we want to go in the lower part of the pedal board, so that we take advantage of the design of the pedal board without sacrificing the dynamic or getting too tense up in our legs. Okay, awesome. So we came to an end of today's topic. I hope everything was clear, and that this information will help you. I always share what really made a difference for me. There are many other details that I cannot go through in every video, because it will take hours and hours. but in this way you will have a generic view with the most important details to pay attention to while you're practicing. In my videos on my website, I go more in depth in every detail. There are workouts designed to develop all of this, and then step by step, so starting without the gear all the way to applying it on grooves and basic independent stuff or more advanced independent stuff, increase the speed and so on, okay? And so there we will find a more complete version of everything we're talking about today. But in the meanwhile, I hope this helps, and I hope to see you next time.